What's up, everybody? Welcome to a bit of a mini Ramble cast here. Flying solo for this mini Ramble cast. This is going to be on Talons of the Emperor, comparing a unit choice for the Sisters of Silence and the Custodian Guard from GW's little mini codex booklets to Forge World's Book 7 Inferno Army List entry for Talons of the Emperor. And this is because it's only natural to kind of be curious about this, since there is Talons of the Emperor um, in the Forge World Horse Heresy series in Book 7. And then GW later on gave us the Talons of the Emperor as a box set and as a mini codex booklet for Custodian Guard and Sisters of Silence for 40k. And as a result, curiosity is what's going on here. So, with that said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare the Sisters of Silence Prosecutor Squad from GW to the Prosecutor Cadre from Forge World, and then the Custodian Guard Squad from GW to the Legio Custodes Custodian Guard Squad of Forge World. I'm going to start off with the Sisters of Silence, and I'm going to use GW stuff as the baseline because I can go in depth on it. The reason I can go, or I feel like I can go in depth on it, is because you can still, as of this ramble, download the old PDF that came with not came with, but was released when Burning of Prospero first came out, to make use of a Sisters of Silence squad or a Custodian Guard squad in a 40k game. It's a little bit outdated / obsolete because of this codex book of stuff we have now, but the stat line and point costs are the same in there, so you can kind of follow along that way, and that's why I feel okay in doing so. But in going in detail on it. But a couple of things before I start. This is a mini ramble cast, so it's going to go longer than my standard videos do. Whatever, no big deal. A couple of grains of salt to take here. Forge World has a complete, full army list breakdown for the Sisters of Silence and the Custodian Guard. This includes war gear, more special rule breakdown stuff, and then unit choices. As a result, they can go a lot more specific and go a lot crazier, you could say, with how things are represented. Versus GW, because GW, with their codex booklets, have 3 Sisters of Silence squads, not counting the Rhino, the Nullman and Rhino, and the Custodian Guard have 1 squad. That can be built as 2 different squads depending on how you build it, but still just have 1 squad in their booklet. So, there's that. Also, we have a bit of a different design philosophy between the 2 different publications, you could say. Yes, Forge World is a sister company to GW, and ultimately is part of GW, you can say, for sure. It has a different design approach and philosophy, and they tend to be a bit wordier, a bit more, not rules heavy, but the rules tend to be a bit fatter, a bit more to them. You have a catch-all term for a rule, a special rule, but when you go and look up that special rule in the book, in Forge World's book that announces it, it's now 3 or 4 separate bullet points that comprise that one rule. It's cool, but it's also more to remember and more to kind of keep track of. GW's philosophy has been since 5th edition to kind of remove the words from the equation, make it a bit easier to follow, where, yes, you may have a special rule that's got a special term to it, but it doesn't do 14 different things. It breaks it down very simply. Not a better or worse design philosophy, just a different one. We also have to understand that GW is the company making the main rules and makes the 40k game, where Forge World stuff, be it Imperial Armor or the Horus Heresy series, is more like a specialist add-on thing for fun, and less rules that have to be able to be used all the time and universal and the like. So, just some things to keep in mind. So with that said, I'm going to break down the Prosecutor Squad compared to the Prosecutor Cadre of Forge World, then the Custodian Guard Squad compared to the Custodian Guard Squad from Forge World, and I'll give some of my thoughts at the end as well. And share your opinions, if you so desire. You can download this PDF still as of this ramble, by the way. The PDF is not what I'm using the Codex booklets, but the PDF has a stat line that's the same as the stat line in the Codex booklets, from GW, of course, so it makes sense. The stat line, the point costs, like I mentioned, are the same. You have to go to the Burning of Prospero and paint guide combo on GW's website. So you go to basically, you would go to box games. I'll go along and do it. You go to box games. You go to, you can't see me doing it. Then you go to the Horus Heresy Burning of Prospero. Then you click on the Horus Heresy Burning of Prospero and Painting Guide, and then you click Downloads in the tab when you scroll down a little bit, and that's the PDF. As with this Ramble, you can still do that. So, with that said, let's look at the Prosecutor Squad. Now, there is no Prosecutor Squad in that PDF. It's just called Sisters of Talons Squad, just as the Custodian Guard Squad is just called that. But for what I'm doing is the Prosecutor Squad. Now, a little grain of salt here. This is an elite choice from GW, and I'm comparing it to a troop choice, the Prosecutor Cadre from Forge World. As a result, you're going to have innate differences just in different force organization slot situations, so keep that in mind. So the Prosecutor Squad from GW is 75 points to start off. It gives you 5 prosecutors. They have a stat line of a weapon skill and ballistic skill of 4, strength and toughness of 3, 1 wound, initiative 5, 2 attacks, leadership 10, 3 plus save. The war gear is bolt gun, close combat weapon, and psych out grenades. Their special rules are Bane of Psychers, Fear, Fearless, Psychic Abomination. For options, they can include up to 5 additional prosecutors for 15 points a model. They can upgrade one prosecutor to be, as they call it, a Sister Superior, not to be confused with the Adepta Sororitas, no relation. But this is a 10-point squad leader upgrade. Don't know why they use this term, but they do. And a unit may select a Null Maiden Rhino as a dedicated transport. So, with that said, that is GW's Prosecutor Squad. The Sister Superior, again, don't know why they use that term. The only difference there is 1 extra attack. So, looking at the Prosecutor Cadre from Forge World, what we see is, starting off, they're 10 points cheaper. This gives you 4 prosecutors and a Prosecutor Mistress, which is their squad leader and a better name. So you get that right off the bat, no need to upgrade to get one. Their stat line for the basic Prosecutor is 1 less initiative, 1 less attack, 2 less leadership. The Prosecutor Mistress has 1 less initiative, 1 less attack, 1 less leadership than the Sister Superior of GW's Prosecutor Squad. I chalk most of this up to being an elite choice versus a troop choice. With that said, the war gear option for the Forge World Squad is a bolt gun, close combat weapon, frag crack, and psych out grenades, and what's called Ratine armor, which just gives them the 3 plus armor save. So they have the addition of frag and crack grenades, so a bit more options there. Special rules wise, they have Psychic Anathema, Fanatic Discipline, and Company Cadre. They can take a Charon pattern Acquisitor as a dedicated transport, so no Rhino for them. They can include up to 5 additional prosecutors for 5 points cheaper per model. The entire squad may exchange their bolt guns for 2 bolt pistols for free if you so desire. 1 model may be equipped with a Nuncio Vox for a point cost. 1 model may be equipped with a breaching charge for a point cost. And the Prosecutor Mistress has options for points. They can take any of the following: Power Weapon, Hand Flamer, Needle Pistol, Plasma Pistol, or Charnable Saber. So you can see the Forge World, being a much more complete army list, has more war gear options for the squad and the squad leader. Special rule differences, without going into it, both do a good job of representing the idea of them being the pariah gene that they are, psychic blanks and all that. The GW one is much simpler. It's very basic in terms, I should say basic, but the 2 rules from GW, one lets them have bonuses to attacking psychers. The other gives them gives the psyker a heavy negative to be near them and all that, and makes them immune to psychic disciplines and whatnot, basically. So it does a good job, but it focuses very much on being anti-psyker. Forge World took the approach of representing the pariah gene in its entirety a bit more, and its rule set isn't quite as penalty heavy to psychers. It's one less than it is to GWs, but it also has a penalty for everybody near them because of them being a pariah. So there is a leadership negative not just to psychers but also to units in general near their vicinity. And I believe that's just to enemy units. And I say that because both GW and Forge Rule rules include a negative to friend and foe alike, uh, because of their pariah gene being universal, you could say. And that's just, a thing that happens. And nope, that negative modifier is to friend and foe equally. At least it looks like part of that rule is, but I'm not going to get into it here and break it down. So, Psychic Anthema has a bit more to it. It has like 4 or 5 bullet points. As I mentioned, more wordier, and while cool, it's a bit more to digest and more to remember versus GWs, which is definitely more simpler to understand and digest than Forge Rules. Now, Forge Rules isn't hard to learn at all, but there's more to it. And when there's more to something, you have a greater chance of just straight up forgetting, which can happen in the heat of the moment for something. So, not that one is better than the other because of it, but it is two different design philosophies, you could say. Both do a good job of representing the Sisters of Silence being pariah gened and being anti-psychers. They both do a good job of that. Neither one feels like a generic force that looks the part. They actually feel the part too. So that's good. Anyways, before I move on, I just want to state yet again, GWs is an elite choice. Forge Rules a troop choice, and I feel that's where the point differences really come into play, and more importantly, where the stat line differences come into play, truthfully. But even with that, because of the more toolbox variety of Forge Rules, Special Rules, and Forge Worlds War Gear options, I'm not saying it's gonna feel like an elite choice because it's still a troop choice, but that in your mind might be able to make up for the stat line differences. Again, not that it truly matters too much because you have a whole lot of stuff to support the Sisters of Silence in Forge Rules army list due to the nature of being a more complete army list. So, with that said, it's really hard to say stuff like that and not make it sound like I'm comparing and saying one's worse than the other, because really they both do a fantastic job of representing these forces, and no matter which way you go, you're going to have a good time with it. It's just one is going to be used in official games and tournaments and stuff, like your hobby store running their monthly whatever tournaments and then events and leagues. The GW rule set is basically what you're going to be using there, and the Forge rule set is going to be for fun games and for special themed events and the like. So with that little tangent aside, let's look at the Custodian Guard now, my favorite of the two. From GW, they come in hot at 260 points for the basic squad. Keep in mind, they're more expensive than Terminators. This is the only squad they get from GW's Codex. It's a troop choice, 260 points to start. They are weapon skill, ballistic skill, strength, and toughness of 5. 2 wounds, initiative of 4, 3 attacks, leadership 10, 2+ save. You get 4 custodians and 1 shield captain for the initial point cost. A point of fact, the shield captain is an HQ choice from Forge Worlds, which has a bit of a different stat line and way more options and costs more points and all that. So something that I'll get to a little bit later in this ramble. And the shield captain has weapon skill of 6, initiative of 5, and 4 attacks. That's the big difference in the Custodian Guard squad here. So war gear wise, and that's for GW's shield captain. War gear wise, they all have the Guardian Spear and a Power Knife. Special rules wise, they have Adamantium Will, Aegis of the Emperor, Bulky, Deep Strike, Fearless. Options, they may include up to 5 additional custodians, and this is for 50 points a model. And then any model may replace their Guardian Spear with a Sentinel Blade for free. Any model not equipped with a Guardian Spear may take a Storm Shield for 10 points a model, and one custodian in your army may replace his Guardian Spear with a Custodian's Vexilla for 30 points. That's 1 per army, not 1 per squad. And the unit may select a Venerable Land Raider as a dedicated transport. So, this is the only Custodian Guard squad choice you have from GW. Just keep that in mind. With that said, let's look at Forge World's Custodian Guard Squad. And this is a little bit different because you're looking at it, if you are looking at both, like I am right now, you're looking at an initial point cost that's 95 points cheaper than GW's. You're thinking, wow, that's crazy. But you're also only getting 3 Custodian Guards off the bat versus the 5 you're getting from GW. So if you add 2 Custodian Guard to that squad, as you can do, you can add up to 7 to make it a 10-man squad if you want. So if you add 2 and then factor in that point cost, what you're looking at is actually the true choice from Forge World being 15 points more expensive than GW's. So that's something to keep in mind. And with that, there are some stat line differences. Forge World's Custodian has 1 higher initiative than GW's Custodian. It has 1 less attack and 1 less leadership. Now, this whole leadership thing is just how the Horse Heresy has been handling leadership from Forge World. So it seems like, wow, what's going on here? But it's just a difference in how things are handled, you could say. So I look at that as more or less a wash. Really, it's the initiative and attack difference. It's kind of a trade-off there. With that said, they don't have a squad leader. As I mentioned, the shield captain is an HQ as opposed to a squad leader like it is in GW. So they get the War Gear Guardian Spear, Close Combat Weapon, Refractor Field, Plasma and Crack Grenades, and then Custodes Armor, which is not just a fancy name. On top of giving them their 2+ armor save that they have, it also gives them move to recover, just so you know. The Guardian Spear works different from GW's Guardian Spear. I'm not going to go into the differences, but they are different from each other, which is kind of weird, but nevertheless, it is what it is. So Forge Rules Custodian Guard Squad special rules are Legio Custodes, Bulky, and Crusader. They can take a Coronis Graph Carrier as a dedicated transport, not a Land Raider. As far as options go, remember they start off as a 3-man squad, so they can take up to 7 additional Custodian Guard, and that's 5 points more expensive per model. The entire Custodian Guard Squad may be equipped with any of the following options: Melt-the-Bombs, Array Strikes, and Teleportation Transponders. Basically, if you take Teleportation Transponders, you get Deep Strike, just like what comes naturally on GW's. So, with that said, any member of the Custodian Guard Squad may replace their Guardian Spear with one of the following options: a Pyrothite Spear or an Adricite Spear, and these are point cost upgrades. One member of the Custodian Guard Squad may exchange their Guardian Spear for one of the following options: a Magisterium Vexilla and Mastercrafted Power Weapon, which is free, or that same Vexilla and a Sentinel Warblade for a point cost. So, with that said, big differences here: no squad leader, the shield captain is an HQ, and that's something I feel that GW dropped the ball on a little bit. It's interesting that they made it a squad leader for the GW Custodian Guard Squad, but I think you should have just kept it as an HQ. You could have beefed it up a little bit because of it and what have you, but they didn't. So that I feel is a little bit of a letdown from GW side of things, but it is a squad leader, so it's still there. But they are very different. Legio Custodes is a special rule that includes several things. Because of that, they're a bit more toolboxed than they are from GW. In GW, they're just raw beat sticks, basically. And from Forge World, they are beat sticks, but with a bit more toolbox variety going on. They don't have Eternal Warrior from Forge World. They do from GW. That's part of the Ages of the Emperor. So, if that is something that matters to you, then you might prefer the GW one. But, nevertheless, I'm not trying to say which one's better. I'm just pointing out some differences here. You'll notice that GWs could take the Sentinel Warblade. Their squad could do that, Forge Worlds can't. And this is because they call it just a Sentinel Blade from GW, but it's the same thing as, more or less the same thing as a Sentinel Warblade from Forge World. The reason you can't do that with the Custodian Guard Squad in Forge World is because you have a Sentinel Guard Squad that's also a true choice from Forge World. They're 2 separate squads. Now, you may say, well, that seems a bit busy and a bit, bulked out unnecessarily, but this also lets you have a bit of a different, what's the best way to put it? It allows you to have more options specified to each squad type. You have the option of the Pyrethite and Andesite spears for the Custodian Guard squad, and then the Sentinel Guard squad has options for Solarite Power Gauntlet or Solarite Power Talons. So you get a bit more of the options going on here. And, I think that is pretty good. So that is just part of a byproduct of Forge World having it be a complete full-on army list. So those are the differences for the Custodian Guard squads in essence. Which one's better is going to be a personal choice. I feel, again, for what the Custodian Guard are, just like for what the Sisters of Silence are, GW does a good job representing that, even though they do it in a bit of a different design philosophy way than Forge World. I do think the Shield Captain being a squad leader was a mistake. I feel like that would have been the perfect excuse and opportunity to have an HQ in the Adeptus Custodes thing. Considering that the Sisters of Silence have 3 elite choices. I mean, they're all elite choices in the Sisters of Silence portion, but they have the Prosecutor Squad, the Vigilator Squad, and the Woodseeker Squad as options, plus the Rhino. I feel like since the Custodian Guard just had the Custodian Guard squad, yes, it could potentially be built as 2 different squads, but they just have that entry, the Contempt of Dreadnought entry, and the Land Raider entry, and that's it. I feel like since they are one down in comparison, you could say, in terms of what's printed to the Sisters of Silence, it would have been interesting if maybe they gave the Custodian Guard an HQ option. And that could have been the Shield Captain, but they didn't. So at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. Just something I feel that's a little bit unfortunate. So, one thing to keep in mind, and I'll kind of close in this thought process in this little mini Ramblecast here, is GW, ever since 5th edition basically, is not going to include anything in their codex or their codex-like booklets and the like that they don't produce themselves. They used to do that. Their drop pod is a classic example, but their philosophy has been to not do that anymore. As a result, we're not going to see the Corona's Graph Carrier in GW's side of things, most likely. I'm assuming Forge World is going to make the Terminator Squad for the Custodian Guards, so we're not going to see that from GW, most likely. Forge World makes, for example, if I can find the name of the squad, Forge World makes the upgrade kit for the Custodes Sagittarium Guard Squad. So we're probably not going to see anything like that from GW either, because it's not part of the kit that they make. The whole reason we have what we have for the Talons of the Emperor in 40k is because GW made it. Now, it's a bit of forward thinking, I feel, because Burning of Prospero came out and they included the Custodian Guard squad and the Sister of Silence squad in there because thematically it made sense that they were present, and I feel like that was a really good example of their forward thinking for what they were going to do with Gathering Storm and all that, and then have them come out for 40k. And there probably is some forward thinking going on there. It probably wasn't a reactive thinking to what do we do with these kits that we made now. They definitely had an idea. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, maybe design strategies and whatnot, and how Forge World does things and how Forge World's doing the Horus Heresy series, they're leaving most likely most of the stuff for the Talons of the Emperor in Forge World's hands, and as a result, we're most likely not going to see too much added to the Talons of the Emperor in 40k, pretty much at all. And thematically, when you look at what they are and how they are from the Gathering Storm perspective, and keep in mind the box set says Gathering Storm, Talons of the Emperor, they're basically meant to be this force that is kind of small and self-contained like this, that is assisting the Imperium at large. It's not taking the fight to the enemy purely by itself necessarily. I mean, it could, and it's very capable of doing so, but the way it's kind of been written up, at least how it seems to me, with Gathering Storm stuff and the like, is that they are now in active frontline assisting duty as opposed to being non-active in that sense like they were in the past, sorta. And that's a ramble for a different time. But anyways, that's a little bit of a comparison for you if you're really curious and haven't seen it elsewhere on the web already. I like both. I like the fact that they're in 40K overall. Again, I'm going to give my thoughts on that in a separate ramble as well. But I wanted to do this comparison mostly because I remember that PDF, which I feel justifies my ability to go in depth on GW's units and not feel guilty about it at all, necessarily, quote unquote, or not be worried about it is a better term. So share your thoughts in the comment section below about, these squads as I mentioned them. And yeah, any questions, comments, or requests, always post them in the comments section. Thanks for sticking through this. I hope you enjoyed and it wasn't too boring for you. And until next time, take it easy.